What's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. It is a Stardom Saturday episode. It is Lucas and Tyler hanging out with you. We are recording on Friday, October 28th, 4:30 p.m. Week 8 fully underway. I'm at Lucas Wenzel on Twitter, Tyler_Plath. We're the FF Fellas on Instagram, FF Fellas on Twitter, Fantasy Football Fellas on TikTok and YouTube. Make sure you give us a follow over there. Turn on notifications. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and to the podcast as well, so you know when new episodes and new videos are coming out every day. And hey, join our community of league winners. I'm just going to tell you, I'm just going to tell you to join. I'm not going to ask you if you want to. You should be joining our community of league winners. Down on our chalkboard, you can click the link down in the description of this audio podcast or YouTube video to join that. Tyler, we've got a full slate today, my man. We've got a full slate.
Full slate.
Starts of the week. Lots of news updates here. But hey, we actually had a good Thursday night football game finally. Finally had a good Thursday night football game. So I want to recap Thursday night football before we dive into anything else. And we're going to do 3 big questions from Thursday night football. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin both performed well. Isaiah Likely came in for the injured Mark Andrews. We'll talk about him in a little bit. Lamar did his thing. Tom Brady kind of did his thing. Enough to make me not as concerned as I once was. But 3 big questions. This is, I think, the most important one. Should managers be looking to sell on Leonard Fournette? Leonard Fournette had 9 carries for 24 yards and a touchdown, 3 receptions on 3 targets for 34 yards, good for 14.8 fantasy points. But here's the kicker. Teammate Rachaad White, 4 carries for 19 yards, 3 receptions on 3 targets as well for 24 yards, had 7.3 fantasy points. This is starting to look more and more like a split backfield by the week. What do you say about Leonard Fournette moving forward?
It's kind of crazy how like the carries have just dropped off a cliff for Lenny.
Yeah.
Like I kind of expected the receiving work. Last year, a big part of his game was the receiving work because there were multiple games where he would get double-digit targets and stuff, and no one saw it coming. Like I had a feeling going into this year, with the Bucs drafting Rachaad White, that the receiving work was going to come back down a little bit. But I think the thing that no one is or was expecting and is still not really comprehending is the fact that Leonard Fournette is only getting 9 carries and has gone for less than 30 yards in less than 2 or back-to-back games, if I'm not mistaken.
It is back-to-back games.
So, granted, there's bigger and I think this is the other point too. There's bigger issues going on with this running game other than just Leonard Fournette. Like the offensive line isn't blocking. There was a stat that like over the last 4 weeks or something, compared to like the worst rushing teams in NFL history, Tampa's like the new worst, apparently, something like that. So there are bigger problems than just Leonard Fournette, but
it's concerning.
It's concerning because I think if you drafted Leonard Fournette, you were drafting him for those 16, 17, 18 point weeks. I don't see those happening very often anymore.
Right. I was thinking about it today and I was super bummed. I didn't make this video earlier in the week that you should have gone out and traded Leonard Fournette for DeAndre Swift, because we are getting DeAndre Swift back this week. We'll talk about him in a little bit as well. But he's one where I would have rather sold on Lenny to go get a stud like DeAndre Swift. And now it's probably too late because Lenny's already played. And now Swift is going to come on Sunday and do his thing. So, yeah, I would be looking to ship off Lenny after this week, see if he can buy low on a running back who underperforms this week. Question number 2 from Thursday Night Football. This is just frustrating. How are you managing Baltimore's backfield moving forward? Because we had Gus Edwards get injured last night. But Kenyon Drake stole the show. 7 carries for 62 yards. 4 receptions on 4 targets for only 5 yards, but he got a touchdown on it. And Gus Edwards, 11 carries for 65 yards. So what are you doing moving forward? It seemed like Gus was the guy, but got injured. Are either of these guys startable moving forward?
No, really, they're not. I mean, they are so unpredictable, right? I mean, Kenyon Drake, when everyone has written him off for the year, he puts in rushing performances like this where he's getting almost 9 yards a carry, right? And then he scores like the every now and then touchdown. Didn't help that Gus Edwards got hurt, but Gus Edwards had a relatively good game up until that point. So I don't know. I think my confidence is still with Gus Edwards, but now with Kenyon Drake playing the way that he has, I can't start them going forward.
No, I don't think I can either. And it's going to be frustrating if you try to. Last question here. What's your level of concern with Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman going forward? Both left last night's game due to injury. Rashad Bateman had practiced in full on Wednesday. I had thought he was going to be back and ready to roll for sure. So what's your level of concern? John, we'll talk about Mark Andrews in a little bit too. I'm dipping into some of our news and notes pieces here, but what's your level of concern? Like on a scale of like 1 to 10 for each player.
Yeah, Mark Andrews for me is like a 2 or 3. Like
Yep.
He was battling something throughout the week on a short week. It's a bummer that he left, but he'll be fine. You know, maybe
Yeah.
he's got a long week, and you know maybe it's a one more game, right? But he'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Bateman, on the other hand, I'm pushing closer to an 8 because
Ooh, interesting.
I mean, I want to pull up his stats. If you
I mean, they haven't been great this year. I got them right in front of me.
Yeah,
What do you want me to look at for you?
just all of it.
59 yards in week 1, 108 in week 2, 59 in week 3, 17 in week 4, was injured weeks 5 and 6, 42 yards last week, shut out last week, but hasn't seen more than 7 targets on the season and has only seen 5 or more targets in 4 out of 6 games. Like I said, isn't too bad, but still, you would like to see that number closer to 6, 7, 8 targets consistently than 5, 7, 4, 6, 5, 1. And
Yep.
receptions are pretty down too.
Yep, and that's exactly it, because it seems like the Ravens are more comfortable just running the ball every single game than airing it out, and
Yeah.
I think that was to be expected, right? But you put Bateman behind, you put him lower on the priority list then, because your first priority is rushing. So instantly it's J.K. Dobbins when he's healthy, Lamar Jackson, Gus Edwards, Kenyon Drake. Then it goes to the receiving game, and honestly, it seems like Lamar has trusted Devin Duvernay. Granted, Rashad Bateman has missed games and stuff.
Yeah.
But Lamar shows some comfortability with Devin Duvernay that I don't think I've seen in a while now with Rashad Bateman.
Yeah.
So you add in this injury, his injury will be fine. But Bateman is not so much of a go-to, I think, as a lot of people thought he could be this year.
You ready for this? I'm going out and I'm buying low on Bateman this week. I think he could be a league winner.
You know what? I don't mind that. I think
he could be a league winner. Here's his schedule. Gets New Orleans next week. Then he's on bye in week 10. After the bye, though, Carolina, Jacksonville. You don't like Denver. But then weeks 14 through 17, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Atlanta, Pittsburgh. That's a juicy playoff schedule right there. And if I'm a team that's like looking to add some depth pieces now, I'm going out and I'm offering my 4th string wide receiver to go get Rashad Bateman on my team, because the Rashad Bateman manager drafted him to be a quality piece on his team, and he's not getting that right now, or they're not getting that right now. So
would you
I'm
trade Tyler
Boyd?
Boyd? Would you trade Tyler Boyd for Rashad Bateman?
I don't know if I'd go that far just with Jamar. Well, I think I would. Because you are going to get Jamar Chase back. We're going to talk about him in a second here. But, yeah, I think I would go trade. I think I'd go get you could probably get Rashad Bateman plus with Tyler Boyd right now. You could do a nice little 2-player package to get 2 players in return. You can get Tyler Boyd couple of nice little pieces back that include Rashad Bateman. I would go do that. I like that. I like that trade a lot. All right, that was our Thursday Night Football recap. Let us dive in to the news and notes from around the league from this past week, brought to you by Sleeper, the #1 fantasy football platform in the world. Tyler, it's where we pretty much play all of our leagues. It's where Cameron plays all of his leagues as well. You can join over 4 million people on Sleeper by using the link down in the description of this audio podcast or YouTube video you are listening to. We talked about Jamar Chase just briefly. He is not going to go on IR per Jordan Schultz of The Score. Jamar Chase suffered a hairline hip fracture and a torn labrum. So I don't know what that means entirely. I'm going to be perfectly honest. This is where I wish we had our friends from the Fantasy Doctors. Shout out to the Fantasy Doctors, Dr. Justin Walker and Raul over there. We're planning on having them on in future weeks, if I'm not mistaken, not to spoil some fun. We're going to have them on in future weeks. That's going to be a lot of fun. So I wish they'd be here to explain this in totality, but this sounds like good news if Jamar Chase isn't going to go on IR.
I think it's a great debate of how effective is just resting and all that compared to just getting the surgery done and whatnot, right? And typically your surgery is going to take some more time to recover.
Sure.
But typically you see better comebacks from surgery than just resting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think with Jamar Chase, though, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that it's a freakish return just because, again, it's Jamar Chase, one of the best players in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm still banking on him being out for 4 weeks. I have him in our Dynasty League where my entire roster is just absolutely shot this year. Not fun. Javonte Williams, Jamar Chase, Trey Lance, Traylon Burks, everybody and their mother is getting hurt on my team. But this is encouraging to me, at least, because there was fear that he could be shut down the rest of the season potentially, but sounds like that's not going to be the case. Mark Andrews, his shoulder issue that he left Thursday Night Football with last night is not serious, according to John Harbaugh. I think this is where you and I kind of fall on that 2-3 scale of we're not too concerned. Mark Andrews will be fine on a short week. He wasn't practicing much the week prior either. Now he gets some extra rest time this week. I think he'll be just fine. DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift is off the injury report. I am so happy. He's expected to play Sunday versus Miami. Happy to get him back. This is what this offense needs. They lost DeAndre Swift. They lost Amon-Ra. This offense needs to get back on track, and I think DeAndre Swift is going to solve a lot of problems with that offense. Quick question. Sneaky, do you think Miami-Detroit is one of those super high-scoring games on Sunday?
Yes, absolutely. I think that is the highest scoring game of the week.
Yeah, I think this could be sneaky like a Detroit-Seattle game from a few weeks back. Not quite that high, but point being, I think we could get some fireworks in that game. Ezekiel Elliott downgraded to doubtful. I even saw the report that he has been ruled out for week 8. And that was earlier this afternoon. I even saw that. So you should plan to be without Ezekiel Elliott on Sunday. Tony Pollard, full go, baby. Fire him up this week. We will chat more about him later, Tyler. Here we go, though. Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry are both ruled out for Sunday's game versus the Raiders. Tyler, don't mind me. Don't mind me. Just tell the people what's happening.
Victory lap, victory lap, victory lap, victory lap, victory lap, victory lap, victory lap. Woohoo! Lucas called it. He called it.
What did I tell you? What did I tell you? We know nothing about these Michael Thomas injuries ever. Ever. So as soon as he's off the field with a toe injury correlated to that foot he was struggling with, why don't we know about these things? Why do we never get details about Michael Thomas's injury? So Michael Thomas could be out the rest of the year as far as I'm concerned at this point. Because I asked you 4 weeks ago? 5 weeks ago when he had been out for a week. I said, what are the odds he misses at least the next 3 games? And you were like, maybe. And I'm like, I fear he could. And now we're at the point where I am terrified. This is exactly what I was terrified about with Michael Thomas. Everybody was like, oh, got to steal the draft. Steal the draft. As soon as something happens, the man is out for 6+ weeks. So sorry for taking a victory lap, but I called this as soon as it happened. I had to take my victory lap. I had to take my victory lap there. James Conner ruled out by Cliff Kingsbury against the Vikings on Sunday. Do we know anything about Darrell Williams' status? He was questionable last I looked.
Questionable, I think, is still the status he's at.
All right, so you are like borderline firing up Eno Benjamin this week. Alan Lazard ruled out for Sunday on Sunday Night Football with a shoulder injury. Per Ian Rappaport, he would be surprised if DK Metcalf plays on Sunday through his knee injury. As we said earlier this week, if you're Seattle, you don't push him.
Darrell Williams update. Cliff Kingsbury said is a game day decision.
So I would plan on firing up Eno Benjamin in your flex this week.
Go ahead. What has Eno Benjamin showed to like put Darrell Williams back into the fire?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and if he's a game time decision, then I would not plan on starting Darrell Williams in any capacity. I think it's a full Eno show once again this week. Lastly, Amon-Ra St. Brown is trending towards playing against Miami on Sunday. That whole thing with his concussion has just been so confusing this week. And I'm sure they're just being extra cautious with the new NFL concussion protocol. But like, if he got knocked out of Sunday's game with fear of a concussion, was deemed by the concussion protocol he didn't have a concussion, yet they're holding him out of practice because of a potential concussion, like, something is not adding up there. The math is not mathing. So the fact that he's trending towards playing, I would say I hope he is, just based on all the reports from this week. Because, did the math for you? Because it did not math for me.
Well, I speak many word win, short word do trick. You know, that's.
Yes. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin.
He's going to play.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This whole protocol thing, let me say this, was the right thing to do. Okay? It was the right thing to do. It's just going to take some getting used to. That's why everyone's just so confused.
And that's exactly what it is. You nailed it right on the head there. That was all of our news and notes. Brought to you by our friends over at Sleeper, the #1 fantasy football platform in the world. If you want to join over 4 million people over on Sleeper to play fantasy football, do some of their over-unders. They have a fun new DFS tool coming out. Click on the link down in the description of this audio podcast or YouTube video you are listening to. All right, Tyler, it's time for starts of the week. What everybody is here and waiting for. We'll run through them all. Quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight end starts of the week. I'm very confident. That's false. I am not very confident in all my starts this week. There is one that I am like slightly terrified of, but I feel like it's too obvious to pass up. I'm confident. I am like 1,000% confident in 3 out of my 4, and I am like 92% confident in my other one. At any rate, quarterback starts of the week. Tyler, who is your start of the week at quarterback?
I got Mr. Jared Goff, Detroit Lions quarterback. And we mentioned this earlier. Detroit, Miami this week could be a shootout with both teams that play a lot of man-to-man defense, but man-to-man defenses can get burned a lot. Amon-Ra can be great against man. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle can be great against man as well. So I'm expecting a lot of yards through the air, and this Detroit offense has shown that they can do that in the past. I mean, Miami's defense is giving up the 5th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the year. They're also giving up the 5th most passing yards to quarterbacks on the year. I think this is one of the more guaranteed plays of the week, and I think in this world of quarterbacks, like how do you classify quarterbacks? Jared Goff is like the number one streaming option this week, in my opinion.
I think I can get behind that. There was a name I did want to bring up before my start of the week, because I sat and I pondered my start of the week for a really long time. I almost made my start of the week Andy Dalton against the Las Vegas Raiders, who their defense is just absolutely abysmal. Just bleeds points to the quarterback position. But one of these days I'm going to quit making this guy my start of the week at quarterback, but he hasn't let me down so far. Captain Kirk Cousins, baby. My start of the week at quarterback. He is undefeated under the roof of US Bank Stadium this year, and he's averaging 20 fantasy points per game in home games this year, with at least 17 in those games. And Arizona currently allowing the 6th most fantasy points to quarterbacks this year, 20 fantasy points per game. And Jalen Hurts, Andy Dalton, both have put up 27 plus on the Cardinals the past 2 weeks. Jalen Hurts put up 27.3. Dalton was over 29. Yeah, fire up Kirk this week. I think this was a high scoring game last year in week 2. This was interesting. I heard this on the Fantasy Footballers podcast from Jason Moore, and he had said he had made this observation that the NFL is like making a ton of high scoring rematches from last year, and this Minnesota Arizona game was one of those games. And so far, those high scoring games have all been through the roof scoring opportunities again. So I think we could potentially get another high scoring game between the Vikings and Cardinals this week, which would lead to a big passing day from Kirk Cousins. So yeah, give me Kirk Cousins as my start of the week at quarterback. Running back starts of the week. Tyler, I absolutely love your running back start of the week. I said we would talk about him later, and it is.
I can't say his name. Can you say it?
I know this pains you. I can say it. I know it pains you. Your start of the week is Tony Pollard. I was surprised his name was in the document for you when I opened it, because he was going to be my start of the week, but you had beaten me to it, and I was somewhat surprised by that. I know this makes you sad.
I just want to cry. This is supposed to be the Zeke week.
It's supposed to be the Zeke week. It really is. After last week, after we told everybody.
All right. Well, yeah, Tony Pollard, start him up. I have him ranked as a running back 1 this week because there's no one to compete with carries. I do. He's my RB12 on the week.
Oh, you have him as an RB1.
Yes.
I thought you meant like he was the RB1. You're like, oh, stop it.
No. Here's the thing. I don't
update my rankings now that you mentioned that. Now that we got the Zeke news. Sorry, continue.
I just don't trust. I shouldn't say I don't trust Dak Prescott yet. I just think the situation needs another week. I mean, he only threw 207, granted, because Detroit couldn't stop the run. But it didn't look great either. So part of it is just not fully trusting Dak just yet. But Chicago and Detroit do not do great against the run. Okay? Even in, Lucas, I'll tell you right now, as I continue to talk about how bad the Bears defense is, do you want to look at Ramondre Stevenson's rushing stats from Monday Night Football?
Against the Bears.
Yes.
Monday Night Football. They weren't that great on Monday Night Football. Against the Browns, though?
Again,
they weren't. Ramondre's rushing stats weren't what elevated him against Chicago. He was only 11 for 39. He had eight targets, 8 receptions for 59 yards, and he did score on the ground.
So the touchdown saved and the receiving work. But I'm not going to say that Pollard gets a similar stat line to Ramondre Stevenson, but it's a very similar situation where there could be a handful of carries, receiving work could be there. Chicago, not great against the run. If I'm not mistaken, they're graded as the 4th worst run defense by PFF. They're giving up the 9th most fantasy points to running backs, which also includes giving up the 7th most rushing yards to running backs, and they are giving up the 7th most touchdowns to running backs. Okay, teams will try to beat them through the air because Chicago will surprisingly put up a fight. We saw that.
Yep.
I mean, New England thought it was going to be a walk in the park, and Chicago said, "Nah, no, sir."
Right.
But Dallas likes to get things going through the run first. Tony Pollard has had big runs before. Yeah, again, I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to be the running back one overall in the week because now Zeke's out. But you can start him with some of the confidence that you give some of these upper echelon guys almost, I would argue.
Yeah, against Chicago, Tony Pollard is going to get fed. Dak is going to find him in the receiving game, whole 9 yards. Yeah, I think Tony Pollard is a great start this week. My start of the week at running back, you brought up the Lions earlier. Raheem the Dream Mostert, baby. He scored at least 18 fantasy points in 2 of his past 3 games, and now he gets the pitiful run defense of the New York Lions, the Detroit Lions. We were talking about, I keep thinking of the New York Giants and the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions. I had them all clumped together at one point this year in their run defenses. New York has stepped it up a bit, but the Detroit Lions, 5 running backs have scored at least 15 fantasy points against them. And how about this? In only 7 games, 7 football games have been played by the Detroit Lions this year. 6. They were on bye last week. Only 6 games have been played. They've allowed 10 running backs to score 11 plus fantasy points. How do you do that? What? How? You haven't even played 10 games. What?
What?
Give me all of Raheem the Dream this week, baby. Let me quick pull up Detroit's stats against running backs in terms of fantasy points per game. Total fantasy points allowed. They have allowed the 8th most fantasy points to the running back position this year. 10 rushing touchdowns. That still is tied with the most with the Cleveland Browns. So I am firing up Raheem Mostert this week. Again, we talked about a high-scoring game. This is just going to be one of those games where Mike McDaniel is just going to put the ball into Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Raheem's hands, and Jared Goff is going to be forced to answer with DeAndre Swift, with Amra. Like, this could be such a high-scoring game. So, yeah, I love Raheem this week. Make sure he's starting in your lineups. Tyler, you've had Jared Goff. You've had Tony Pollard. Your wide receiver start of the week now. I really like this wide receiver start of the week. I am very high on him this week.
Devontae Smith is going to pop off this week. He will. He's going to. This, I think. Do you remember his Washington stat line? Like the stat line he had from the Washington game?
Give me 20 seconds and I'll have it for you.
Yeah, I'll keep talking. So Steelers defense has not been great against wide receivers. They did kind of shut down the Bucs, but I'm kind of running off. I'm not running off the Bucs, but the Bucs are not.
Well, the Bucs they've fallen off here without most of their secondary. The Bucs have been pretty tough to watch.
Yes.
Smith's stat line from week 3 against Washington: 12 targets, 8 receptions, 169 yards, and a tutty. Against Arizona, he also had 11 targets, 10 receptions for 87 yards as well.
I would not be surprised if he finishes with a similar stat line with what he finished in Arizona.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be plenty of targets to go around, and maybe he finds the end zone. But I mean, Pittsburgh, they're allowing the 2nd most fantasy points to wide receivers. Let me get this right. 6th in the receptions. 2nd in yards, tied for 3rd in receiving touchdowns given up.
They've allowed 9, have they not?
Yep. Like they just
to wide receiver specifically, yeah.
To wide receiver specific, correct. Yeah, like this secondary, I can't even blame it on the secondary. The way they beat the Steelers is through the air. And if I'm not mistaken, that was the last carry filled game that we saw from Leonard Fournette was against the Steelers because he had 21 carries.
Yep.
And that kind of played into why the Steelers won. But again, I think, Philadelphia knows how to beat the opponent. They knew
really
against
good
Minnesota
team this year.
Right. They knew against Minnesota the way to beat Minnesota wasn't necessarily with the run. More so plays over the middle in the soft spots of the zone. Pittsburgh plays zone a lot. Philly has beat that before. So they have the formula to win big. I like Devontae Smith this week a lot.
Yeah, I love Devonta Smith this week. I think he's like an absolute lineup lock, and he has to be in your lineup at all costs this week. All right, my start of the week at wide receiver. I'm terrified to make this player my start of the week, but like, I feel like he needs to be here. Okay, this is another. I was wrong with my like feeling in my bones pick last time. It was Jerry Jeudy when I was last on the Stardom Saturday episode, but this week, like, it makes too much sense, Tyler, and it's probably going to go terribly south. But because it's this obvious, I have to make this player my start of the week. DJ Moore of the Carolina Panthers. I hate it, but it feels too obvious to not make DJ Moore my start of the week. No more Christian McCaffrey on this team. No more Robbie Anderson. DJ Moore is now the guy in this offense, and we saw it last week. He got force-fed 12 targets. In his past 3 matchups with Atlanta, he scored at least 12 fantasy points. And Atlanta is they are atrocious against wide receivers this year. They're allowing 3 more fantasy points per game than any other team in the NFL. And they're allowing the most points to the position. No AJ Terrell. Casey Hayward's on IR. Nobody is going to be out there to defend DJ Moore. Now he's going to build up this rapport with PJ Walker. Like, it feels too obvious. It feels too obvious to start DJ Moore this week. But that's why I'm making him my start of the week, because the pick is there. The analysis is there. The logic is there. DJ Moore just needs to capitalize on it. No more Matt Rule to screw things up anymore. I really like DJ Moore this week. I have him slotted in almost every lineup that I have him in. And frankly, if he's cheap enough on DFS, he's probably going to be in most of my DFS lineups this week too. So yeah, I'm firing up DJ Moore. All right, let's wrap out starts of the week here with tight ends, Tyler. Your start of the week at tight end kind of surprises me, but also I'm starting him in a league because I have Travis Kelce on by.
Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst arguably takes over this like number 3 option, pass catching option in this offense now with no Jamar Chase. And Hurst has been utilized with Jamar Chase. So I'm not going to sit here and try to make the argument that like Hayden Hurst is going to finish with like 9 targets, 5 or 6 receptions for like 80 yards.
Really? You're not going to do that? That's what I fully expected.
But I am expecting 4 catches for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm kidding. Totally kidding. But I think the reason why you start Hayden Hurst this week is just based on upside. Now with no Jamar Chase, that is a ton of targets voided over the last couple of weeks. I mean, Jamar Chase has had 12 targets the last 2 games. I think maybe 13. It's double digits.
He's gone over that mark. It's double digits the past.
It's double digits. Sure. Those targets are now voided, or I shouldn't say voided. They're up for grabs. Could T. Higgins grab it? Absolutely. Could Tyler Boyd grab it? Absolutely. But Hayden Hurst could also get some of that. So you're starting Hayden Hurst just based on the upside of potential greater volume than what we've seen, and he's been a red zone threat. I mean, he has 3-4 touchdowns on the year?
Let me check that.
I want to say it's like 3.
From that, I believe he has 3. He has 2.
2? Well, they're in recent weeks.
Year, but he's, as let's say, but he scored double-digit fantasy points 3 of the past 4 weeks.
Yep, that was the other point.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. You are such a great host. You read my mind, and you got the point out.
That's what happens when you become a host of a podcast. You become a mind reader. In case you ever want to learn how to read people's minds, just host a podcast. True.
No, again, Hayden Hurst is on a hot streak right now. There is potential for greater volume coming his way with no Jamar Chase. It's an upside start, but he should be coming through.
Yeah. I think Hayden Hurst becomes a sneaky quality play in the coming weeks without Jamar Chase. Was very happy to acquire him in a trade recently, and then, I mean, Don't get me wrong. I would much rather have my sweet Prince Jamar Chase healthy and in my lineup. But you know what? I will take it on Travis Kelce's bye week to give Hayden Hurst a little bit of a boost. All right. My start of the week at tight end. I'm going to go with a stack here. Irv Smith Jr.
Ooh,
My start of the week at tight end.
Swervin' Irvin.
Arizona's allowing the second most fantasy points to tight ends this year and the most touchdowns. We've seen Irv Smith get quite a bit of utilization in the red zone this year. 6 tight ends have also scored at least 10 fantasy points versus the Cardinals. Like, this is a game where Irv Smith could just find the end zone. I think this is a game where Irv Smith finally shakes the Butterfingers because, man, that dude has got to get some stickum on his gloves or something. Whatever it is, I think Irv Smith, quality start this week. If you need a streaming tight end, if you got Travis Kelce on bye, I think Irv Smith is a quality streamer this week. I would be happy to slot him in and play him. That wraps out our starts of the week. Tyler. At quarterback went Jared Goff, Tony Pollard. At running back, Devonta Smith, Hayden Hurst. My starts of the week were Kirk Cousins, Raheem Mostert, DJ Moore, and Irv Smith Jr. All right, Tyler, let's bring this episode home, as we always do, to close out our Start of Saturday episode. Let's talk some player props brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Good friends over at Underdog Fantasy. If you use our promo code FELLAS when you sign up, get an instant match on your first deposit up to $100. They have everything from Pick'em. They have, oh no, you're in disgust. Let me finish this plug and then I'll let you express your frustration. Underdog has everything from Pick'em, where you can pick higher or lower on specific lines. They have Rivals, where they pin 2 players against each other. You can pick which player has a higher or lower line. They also have daily fantasy drafts that you can participate in, where it is literally a draft, and you draft a team for the week, whatever it is. Underdog has a ton for you to participate in. Use our promo code FELLAS, the link down in the description of this audio podcast or YouTube video you are listening to get an instant match on your first deposit up to $100. All right, Tyler, you're in disgust. And like, I'll just kick it over to you at this point, right? I just kick my feet up and relax, and you take over this portion of the show, but like, you were in disgust. Explain yourself.
So when I was making my list of props that we were going to talk about for the podcast earlier today, there was a line that I saw that said, you know what? That is an absolute smash of an over. I can't believe this line is where it's at. And I just, went on to Underdog real quick just to make sure, just to double check the line. And the line has changed.
Of course it has.
When I typed this up, Jared Goff's prop line for passing yards was at 245.5.
Oh.
It's now up to 261.
No. They shot that up 16 yards?
16 yards.
Oh, brother.
And I thought
They got got. They figured out it was too low.
Which I'm
unbelievable.
I'm frustrated with. Thankfully, I got it.
Thankfully,
I got it.
You put in a few lays. I know you did.
But now I turn it over to you, Lucas. With a 16-yard jump, that to me says that Underdog realized, oh, that's too low. Everyone's taking the over.
Yeah.
So does this jump push you now to the under? Or do you still go over thinking it's a shootout?
It pushes me to abstain. It pushes me to not participate in this prop. If
Good
you're
answer,
going to put a gun to my head, though, and make me pick, I think I'm still going to lean the over. I really think this is going to be one of those high-scoring games this week, and Goff could go for 280 in this game. Mm-hmm. I am much less enticed to form any sort of parlay around Jared Goff now at 260.5. 245 I'm all in. 260.5 I'm just staying away from the line at this point. But if you're forcing me to pick, if I had no other options and I needed to create a 2 to 3 player parlay, I would go over on 260.5 for Goff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I reacted the way I did, because I said, that's stupid. I don't like that. Once you submit a line, I think you should keep the line. It's your fault if you went too low. That's just me. But what do I know? I'm just a consumer. All right.
Yeah. We're just
Next
consumer and a promoter.
Next player, Jalen Waddle. Same game, other sideline. Jalen Waddle, his receiving yard prop line is at 67.5. And I'm going to double check that, because if Goff's went up by that much, I should probably double check all of them. Nope, still 67.5.
Over. I don't know why this line is so low. I cannot figure out. Like, I get there's a shoulder injury there, but this is one of those lines that's going to move probably by the time you listen to this podcast. That is such an easy over for me. Like, I understand Detroit is pretty good against wide receivers. I believe they're bottom half in the league, bottom third of the league in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers, including receiving yards. I don't get this one though. Like, I really don't get this one at 67.5.
Yeah. So Jalen Waddle has gone over this line in 5 of his 7 games this year, and the only 2 games that he went under were the games that he wasn't 100%. Cincinnati on the short week after getting injured, and the week after that. Since then, he's been playing at 100% and has gone over. Simple.
Yeah,
over.
Over. That I can't believe that line is that low.
Next one. I had to throw this guy in this one. It's Kyle Pitts.
Oh, under.
Disgusting.
Kyle Pitts. Oh, that
Disgusting.
dude stinks, man. I cannot. Oh my goodness. Under.
Hey, don't forget,
I don't care.
top 18.
This is going to be the week he goes under, but I cannot take Kyle Pitts at an over. I cannot. I refuse.
He's gone under in 5 of 6 games this year, and Mariota has not thrown the ball more than 15 times in a game the last 2 weeks.
It's disgusting. Oh, Arthur, man. You're wasting a generational talent.
My guy,
34 and a
dude.
half. That seems halfway enticing, but it's not when you see 9 yards, 12 yards, 19 yards. No, I can't do it.
Under. He's an under until we see different. That's what I said.
Yeah.
When I joined the Fantasy Doctors podcast, again, shout out to Rahul, shout out to Mike, shout out to Dr. Morse. This was the prop that I brought up because I was like, what makes me change? Like, what has happened that makes me change the idea that, 34, he goes over on it? Nothing.
Literally nothing. And the
Nothing.
matchup isn't even that great with Carolina this week.
Right. All right. Next line, we got 2 individuals, and then we'll do the rivals, because the rivals are also kind of interesting this week. Derrick Henry, his line over at Underdog for rushing yards, 101.5.
It feels high, but then you realize they play the Houston Texans. And then all of a sudden you say anything is possible. Like my inclination is to say over on that. I don't see how you can't say over on that when it's Derrick Henry against Houston and this Titans passing attack is sputtering. Ryan Tannehill listed as questionable for this week. We didn't bring that up in the news and notes, but I didn't feel like that was like major enough to bring up. But if Tannehill doesn't play and it's Malik Willis, Derrick Henry's going to get 30 touches.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Here's the thing.
Oh, and he's gone over 101 the last 3 games too.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me the over on that then. Especially
Houston.
against Houston. Yeah.
Houston's graded as the worst run defense by PFF. And
Not surprising.
in Derrick Henry's last 3 games against Houston, not only has he gone over 200 yards rushing in each game, he's averaging 225, 224.
Shut up. Say that again. I want to make sure I heard you right.
Derrick Henry, King Henry himself, is averaging 224 rushing yards per game over the last 3 games versus the Texans.
There's no way. That's not true, is it?
That's absolutely
It
true.
can't be. That
Yep.
cannot be true. Holy nuts.
Factual statement.
212. For those of you who don't believe this, I'm looking at the numbers right now. In 2020, because he didn't play against Houston either time last year due to his injury. Against Houston last year, in Week 6, 212 yards. Against Houston in Week 17, in 2020, 250 yards. In 2019 against Houston, Week 17, 211 yards. That is insane. Oh, I did not realize it was that awful. Or like that. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Smash the over. That one might be free cash this week.
That one is. You thought Aaron Rodgers owns the city of Chicago. Derrick Henry owns the city of Houston, okay?
No kidding. My goodness.
All right, last individual player we got. We're going to switch it up a little bit. The other ones were stat lines. This one is fantasy point lines. Jacoby Myers, 10.05 fantasy points this week. Over or under?
This one feels like a trap in all facets of it because I want to take the over. But then I know in the notes, like I was going to bring this up regardless of the notes. Like Sauce Gardner, he's been so freaking good this year. Can we just put a ton of respect on his name? Like he has been absolutely incredible this year. You said you were going to look at, you said you were going to look at cornerback alignments throughout the season. So are we sure Sauce Gardner is going to be on Jacoby in the slot?
It seems so. It's not necessarily that they'll move Sauce they'll move Sauce into the slot, but New England moves Jacoby all over the place.
Where's he at in slot reps this year? I'll take a look at that. Sorry, I asked you a question that I shouldn't ask you as you're hosting this portion.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You keep talking. You keep explaining.
So even if he doesn't draw Sauce Gardner, the Jets also have a corner. If I'm not mistaken, his name is DJ Hall? DJ something. I'm going to look up that name because he came over from Seattle last year.
Interesting. Sorry.
And he's a bit of an undersized corner. He could line up in the slotting against Jacoby Myers. DJ Reed.
Yeah, that sounds right.
The Jets, did you know this? The Jets are currently graded second best by PFF in coverage.
That doesn't surprise me. They've been sneaky good against wide receivers this year. Yeah, this Jacoby line, I'm staying away from it, but 10.5 feels like a trap, so I would go under.
Yeah, well, and it's not even 10.5. It's 10
Or
essentially because it's 0.05.
Yeah, right.
I'm going under. So
yeah, that just feels like a trap. I'd rather not play with it, but.
And I think here's what makes it a lock for an under. With Underdog, their pick'ems, it's half PPR.
Right.
This does not feel like it's going to be a volume game for Jacoby Myers like he's had in the past in some other games.
Yep.
So half PPR, those receptions, like if he finishes with 4 receptions, it's 2 points. Finishes with 6, it's 3.
Yep.
I don't think he finds the end zone in this game. I don't think his yards go over 60. I like the under. We're going to move on to the rivals.
I like rivals.
The rivals this week are pretty interesting because when I made this list, they did not come out with the full weekly slate of picks and lines and stuff. But what I found, I thought was pretty interesting. We're going to start with the Steelers wide receivers. Maybe I should explain real quick rivals. 2 players pinned up against each other in the same game under a certain stat. One player gets a bonus, one player does not. At the end of the game, the bonus is added to the stat total, and you see who has a higher stat total. If you chose correctly and you string together 2 or more, you win, essentially.
Yeah.
So, example, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson this week. George Pickens gets an 11.5 yard boost to his total compared to Deontay Johnson.
I saw this one earlier, and I was very confused because I am taking George Pickens at 11.5 or 11. Yeah, 11.5. That's a no-brainer to me. Deontay Johnson Oh, excuse me. Deontay draws. Oh, I literally just left me who the Steelers played this week.
Philly.
Oh crap! This is embarrassing. Philly, thank you. Deontay Johnson's going to be drawing Darius Slay. I'm like, it's one of those top corners that I am always terrified of. Draws Darius Slay. I think James Bradbury might bounce around between Pickens and Claypool, but like I would much rather give the 11.5 point cushion to George Pickens here. That one feels easy to me.
Over the last 4 games, Pickens is averaging 68 yards a game, and Deontay is averaging 35. And Pickens has outgained Deontay in 3 of those last 4 games.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer to me then. I sneaky
Give me the
can we talk George Pickens? Can we talk George Pickens like fantasy line too? Is it still at 9?
His fantasy point line?
Yeah.
Ooh, good question.
So it was at 9. It was at 9 earlier today when I made
It's
our
at
video.
8.95.
Yeah, that's feels like another easy over for me.
I like that
Anyways,
one too.
sorry to sidetrack,
I mean,
but we can move on to the next one.
His receiving yard prop line, just for context, 41.5. And Deontay's receiving line prop is at 49.5.
Kenny Pickett's only going to throw for 120 yards this week. That's what they're saying.
And 80 of it is going to go to Pickens. So I'm kidding. All right. Next one, Aaron Rodgers versus Josh Allen in passing yards. Aaron Rodgers is getting a 43.5 point boost.
What? That's it?
That's it.
They got to give Aaron Rodgers 200 this year if he's going to keep up with Josh Allen. Are you kidding me? Josh Allen. That's a no-brainer.
Easy. Allen's averaging 330 yards per game. He's averaging 370 yards at home.
Oh, it is at Buffalo. Oh, goodness.
Rodgers is averaging 228 yards a game, 215 yards on the road. And he has no Alan Lazard this week. That one's a pretty easy one.
That's pretty easy.
Next one we got, it features your start of the week, Lucas. At quarterback, Captain Kirk Cousins.
Captain Kirk.
Versus Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray is getting a 14.5 yard boost to his passing yard total.
This could be one of those games where Kyler goes nuts for like 345, but I don't think he does it with his arm. I think he does it with his legs this week. I'm curious to know if they come out with a Kyler rushing prop. I'm far more interested in that than any Kyler passing prop. The 14.5 for Kyler, I don't think that's enough. I think Kirk. I would lean Kirk there. I don't know if that would be my first choice, but I like Kirk there. I like Kirk over Kyler at 14.5 even.
I go Kirk as well. Kirk is much better against zone coverages than he is against man coverages. That's why he struggled so much against Philly and in Miami. And there's only 2 teams that run zone more often than the Vikings. Can you guess what one of those teams is?
Well, if you're mentioning it in this bit here, I'm going to guess it's the Arizona Cardinals.
It's Arizona. So let's
the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, true.
Did you say
so
there's 2?
Well, there's 2. I don't remember who the
other
other team
I wouldn't
is.
guess Green Bay, but that's irrelevant.
Actually, maybe I still got it.
If not, we can keep cruising.
Oh, it's the LA Rams.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all either.
So let's just run through the checklist real quick. 12 o'clock kickoff, check. Home game, check.
Check.
Zone defense, check.
High scoring
game, check. Kirk Cousins could be the quarterback one on the week. So, all right, next one. Justin Fields versus Dak Prescott in passing yards.
I hate this one.
Here's the kicker. Justin Fields is getting a 76.5 yard boost to his total. What you going with?
That's a lot of yards.
That's a lot of yards.
Like that's like a boost that Aaron Rodgers needs to keep up with Josh Allen. Oh,
Yep.
that's a lot of yards. I mean, he's still been throwing for like, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but like he's been throwing for right around like 165 most of the season. So you're getting him up to 240. So then the question is, do you think Dak goes for 240 against the Bears? And I don't know if he does, because I think they could just feed Pollard the entire game. Like, I don't know, like, it feels dumb for me to say Justin Fields, but like logically, like, you're not going to run against the Cowboys. You're not going to do that. Justin Fields, I don't know if he's going to be passing. I think he'll be scrambling more, but like 76.5, like, I just kind of see this being an ugly, grinded out game. So I would just rather give the points to Fields and not think twice about it. And I don't want to invest in that one, but yeah, after making me choose, I'll go Justin Fields. And I kind of hate saying that.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, because when I first saw this line, I was like, yeah, there's no way. And then I actually like looked it up, and I was like, that's a lot of yards to Justin Fields.
That's a lot of yards. That's a lot of yards.
And here's the thing: over the last 4 weeks,
worth of yards.
Right, in the last 4 weeks, Chicago has actually kind of ramped up the passing game a little bit.
Right.
So Fields is now averaging close to 190 passing yards a game over the last 4 weeks. That's add
crazy.
the bonus. You add the bonus, that puts him 260, 270. Dak only put up 200 in the first week back because Detroit couldn't stop the run, so they just ran the ball the entire time. Chicago is just as bad in the run. In other words, Chicago is going to be playing from behind. They will be throwing the ball.
Yeah.
Take the points, take the bonus, and take Justin Fields. So,
yeah, rarely would I say take the points. But that's too many. 76.5 is too many for what this game will likely be.
You got it. So, that finishes up our rival props and our player props. Again, you can find those lines over on Underdog. We love Underdog.
We love Underdog.
Lucas, I'll give it back to you because I can't host anymore.
He's like, my hosting abilities have run out. I have run out I've run out of script. Underdog Fantasy. Great friends over there. You can get 100% match on your first deposit up to $100 using the link down in the description of the audio podcast or YouTube video you are watching. Take any of these props and parlay them. If you hit all 5, you can 20 times your money over there.
That's what I'm doing this weekend.
That wraps out this episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Tyler, do you have anything you want to add before we sign off here?
Hey, join the Chalkboard.
Yeah.
We'll drop more of these on Chalkboard.
Yes, Tyler drops 10 to 12 of those every week over on our Chalkboard. So you can tune over there. He'll drop a few more over there. Let's win together this weekend. Again, you can use promo code fellas or the link down the audio podcast or down the description of the audio podcast or YouTube video you are watching. You can find us on the socials, FF Fellas on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on TikTok and YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Turn on those notifications so you know when new videos are coming out. Same with the podcast. If you're listening to the audio podcast right now, make sure you're subscribed. Turn on those notifications so you know when new episodes are coming out. I'm at Lucas Wentzel on Twitter. Tyler_Plath for Tyler. We're two stooges being dudes, the Fantasy Football Fellas. Enjoy week 8. We will see you on Tuesday to wrap everything up. Deuces.